The good BAs will go in, they will list the business requirements, but the great ones, they will sell the value proposition to the business area that's being impacted. They will try to connect the projects to the strategy of the company. Because I feel like good BAs, yes, they might have the basics, right? Like you can deliver on the project, but then if you want to become a great BA, you need to have something innate in you. You have the awareness, the presence in the room where you're establishing trust with your stakeholders. Because trust is a very important thing as a BA. Can people pick up the phone and just call you and say, Tando, I've got a problem and I just want to run something by you? Once you get to that point in your career, then you know you're great.
Welcome to the Inside Business Analysis podcast. I'm your host, Tanner Jacobs, and today I'm joined with a very exciting guest, Garnet Masenda. Garnet, how are you doing today?
I'm great, man. I've been looking forward to this conversation with you. It's been a long time coming.
Absolutely. Yes, it has. And I'm finally happy we got it booked in and we're literally doing it right now. So I'm really excited about this. So Garnet, you have got years and years and years and years of experience in this space, business analysis, consulting. You've been a global BA practice lead. You've been a VP. You've kind of a partner and you've really had all range of roles within this space with breadth of experience. So I was really excited to talk to you just around the topic of, how do we become superstar business analysts? And I think you're really good to have this conversation with, because your experience is not just different companies, but also in different countries. You've kind of been able to deliver business analysis in different countries and different spaces. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, the reason why I'm excited for this conversation. So to kind of kickstart off with you, Garnet, if you had to kind of think back, like in your career, how looking back to the early days, what inspired you to kind of start this journey, and how did that happen for you?
So for me, it really started because I was born and bred in Zimbabwe, so that's where I come from. And for me, it was really started as a love for computers, because I got exposed to computer when I was very young, and there's a funny story to it, actually. So, like when you're growing up in Zim and then I'm watching TV and then I'm seeing some people that are typing very, very fast. So when I finished my O levels, which is like, it's like probably junior high in this part of the world, I was so intrigued by people that are typing very fast. And I said to my dad, you know what? I want to learn how to type very fast. So I went to a college where they taught me how to type very fast. It was like a typing school or something. So now I can type without looking at the keyboard. So that is what was intriguing for me. But then when I was sitting in front of the computer, because it was something that was very new, I just got hooked into computers. I love technology. But then because my dad was an accountant, I was now thinking, what can I do with this computer, but then not lose the business side of things? Because my dad was a bit of an inspiration for me. And this is now where I think these were a couple of things that I would like us to touch on, especially on the mentorship side. Because when I went to college, I had my undergraduate degree was in information systems. But then when you were in college, third year, we actually went for an internship. And then I worked for this company. That's when I met one of my first mentors in my life. And I spoke to him about one of my career aspirations. And from there, that's when I discovered business analysis, because I wanted to look for something that was going to be a balance of my love for technology. I didn't want to lose the business side of things. And there was something that was like kind of in the middle. And that's how we discovered business analysis. We actually did research together. Back then, 18 years ago, business analysis was like a novelty. It was something that was very new to the market. Yes, it had a cool title. So you'd get a lot of people that are saying, hey, I want to be a business analyst. And then you ask them, why do you want to do that? When we talk about mentorship and mentees at some point, I'd like to unpack that. Because sometimes when you sit across a couple of people that are saying, I want to start a journey as a BA, can you please tell me what it's all about? And the first thing that I ask them is, how passionate are you about technology and business? Because for me, if you're not passionate about those two things, then you don't really get hooked. But back to my story, for me, that is how it all began. It really was about, I loved computers at a very young age. I did not like to become a developer because I don't like writing code. So for me, it was like really finding the sweet spot where you're really using computers for everything, but then you also don't use the business side of things. So that's how I really started.
Interesting. I love that. I love that. It's so funny that your journey start was inspired by what you saw on TV.
Yeah.
That's the first I have to say from a career perspective to say I'm a business analyst because of what I saw on TV. Love that. So that obviously the passion is there, right? And the opportunities came up for you to then start this journey as a business analyst. And when you started, you were in Johannesburg, South Africa, right? So can you just touch on kind of the early years of that experience working in South Africa as a business analyst? You know, what was that like for you, and how did you kind of grow and develop to becoming a business analyst, not just by title, but and passion, but ensuring that you're really doing a competent role, you know?
That's a very good question, because I think I had a lot of people that helped me on the journey. Because when you're starting up as a BA, one of the things that you need to learn is how do you establish your presence? Because for me, I think if a BA, you're a leader without a title. And imagine you're calling a meeting and you're lacking presence. People can pick it up. Every time I talk to a lot of people on my team, whether I'm leading a team or I'm just trying to help other BAs who are wanting to be great, is that you have to be over-prepared. You have to over-plan for all your meetings. So that was one of the things that I actually learned. And the reason why I bring up that point is my entry into business analysis was within the consulting space. So I was a consultant. And the good thing about joining a consulting company was that, you know, like you have like a community of practices where they tell you this is how we want you to behave in front of the client. And then they give you some of the tips of the trade. How do you establish your presence? How do you have lunch with the client? Because you're really working around the clock. If you're at the client side, you're representing a company. You're also representing yourself. So for me, that was my entry into business analysis. I joined a consulting company and they had a wealth of literature of things that you can refer to. We were actually paired up with some mentors within the company that would help you to grow your career. So for me, that was the first exposure to business analysis. And then moving from consulting to corporate, it was really transferring those skills and all the different tricks of the trade that I'd learned as a consultant and then now take it into the corporate world. I found the transition very, very easy, because for me, I felt like I was very much prepared for that. At the beginning of my journey as a young BA, because I was so driven, I actually got assigned to a client when I was the only consultant to be at that client. And that was like, I think it was maybe after 6 months, I joined the company because I'd done a project and I'd done very well on that project. And then I get assigned to these, it was like a new client. And then they said, you know what, we just need a BA for 3 months. We need somebody to come and help us. So this is me. I'm very, very young. And then I go to this meeting, and it was a meeting full of about 12 people. So it was a bunch of developers that had never worked with a BA before. And I was there to introduce business analysis to this team of developers. Because you see, what was happening was that they were developing a solution for the South African market, but I think they were not hitting the mark in terms of understanding what are the business requirements, what are the needs, what are we trying to achieve. So there was just dumped into the deep end. Man, I learned so much from that experience, because some of the ideas that I was bringing forth, I had to convince people to think in other terms. I looked at the existing documentation. There was literally nothing. It was just a couple of sentences. And then you see there's a solution here, there's a product. Then they don't have any requirements, which is why they brought me in as a consultant to say, hey, can you come help us and document what we're trying to achieve? And so this was like a small company. I think it had about 40 people, but the technology was so great. It was to process payments. So you could imagine that we're talking about volumes and volumes of performance. And it was me not trying to explain to them the differences between a functional requirement and a non-functional requirement. This is what your clients are looking for. So that for me was one of the most fulfilling experiences that I've ever had, because they actually extended my contract because I'd actually done well. And the reason why I bring up that story is because when you get trained as a consultant, I think that you are so much equipped with all the things that you can thrive, especially if you embrace some of the teachings that you get from that. Because here I literally was one person representing my company at that particular firm, where there were a bunch of developers. I was trying to explain to them what a use case is. Tando, I literally had to do like a use case 101 where to explain to them, this is a use case. We're going to articulate business requirements in the form of a use case. And this is why a use case is very important. And I remember one of the guys who was sitting in the meeting, it was like in some old chap. And he had done computers, I think, from the 60s. And then he's telling me, what is this guy talking about? He's very new. He's talking about business analysis. So remember when I said that it was still a new discipline within the industry where people are saying, we hear this word business analysis, but what does it mean? So I actually had to explain to them what is business analysis. And then I had to explain to them what a use case does, what are the benefits of a use case. So I had to convince them to embrace use cases before we even start documenting requirements in the form of use cases. Oh, man. Needless to say that it actually went very well. The guy actually called me in a couple of weeks later, and then he said, you know what, I actually see what you're saying now, because now my developers are very clear about what we're trying to deliver. So they end up extending the contract. But it was one of those things where at the very, very early stage of my career, because I was so driven, and I really leaned on my mentor, the person that I was partnered with. It's one of the things that I value the most as a BA. Like, if you want to be a great BA, find a mentor. Because the thing about a mentor is that they're not coaches. They're not coaching you how to do things, but then they just give you perspectives. They give you direction. And I have had mentors in my whole life, and that I found that very beneficial.
My goodness, that is such an exciting, thrilling, nerve-wracking experience all at once. I can imagine. I mean, you're just like thrown in the deep end, 6 months in. You're a passionate business analyst, but working with people who don't even know what business analysis is, and you're having to take them on this journey. I mean, but as you said, that's how we learn, right? That's how we become impactful. So again, just sticking in at this your journey. You were in South Africa for about 10 years, I believe, as a business analyst. And whilst you were working in South Africa and kind of really then developing yourself as a business analyst and as a consultant, you've touched on this earlier a little bit, but I just want to drive it a little bit home. How did you then continuously kind of develop and progress yourself, outside of just kind of doing your job and maybe even having a mentor at the same time?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I think I'd like to maybe just touch on that have made a very positive difference in my life as a BA, career-wise. So I think there are three things that I've actually thought of when we was preparing for this conversation, because I thought that this question might be coming. So I said, okay, let me be prepared. You know what I said earlier on, that I like preparing a lot. I know I spoke about mentorship, but I want to talk about that last. There's a couple of things that I want to talk about, which I think have made a difference, not just in my career, but then just in life in general. Networking is one of those things. So if you look at my profile, I have been involved with the IIBA. As a VP, I have volunteered within the BA community, and through that, you find a lot of networks. So you see, when you start networking, I feel like you get exposed to different industries, different skill sets. When you're exchanging notes and you're having coffee with the BA sitting across the room from you, then in a different industry, you start identifying a lot of similarities in terms of some of the challenges that you guys are facing and how you can actually resolve some of those challenges. And I found that networking actually opened up a lot of doors for me. And speaking of that, when I was a consultant, one of the guys who was one of the senior leaders in the company actually started his own startup. And he actually came back and said, no, I need a strong BA. Guess what? I don't have BAs in my team. I want you to be the first one that we hire. I was like, challenge accepted. I was very young at that point, and I like to take on challenges. But this is a testament to saying networking actually helps, because it was a startup. It did not end as well as this story actually started, because the company went under after about 9 months. But I always tell people that this was one of my most valuable experiences in my life, working for a startup company that actually folded, because the amount of school fees, I like calling it school fees, like when you learn the hard lessons, you're paying school fees. That's what I like to call it.
I love that.
I think what I learned from a company that's not doing well, it actually built some resilience that I think I have up to this day. Because I think we were doing well. We were creating a platform that was very new to the world, not just in the South African space. It was just around the World Cup time, 2010. So, as you know, yeah. So during the World Cup, this company, we were trying to develop an app that was going to help the tourists to come to South Africa and to learn about what you do when you're in South Africa and all those kind of things. That was way before Google had all the content. So we were actually trying to establish a platform that would connect the communities together, welcome tourists, and actually show them what is available. And for me, it was very, very cool tech because it was new. It was new mobile app that was coming up. And through networking, this guy, they're investing in this company, and then they said, we need a good BA. So through networking, I got recruited, and I was very happy working in that space because that was my first time trying to sit in front of a client and pitching a product that doesn't exist yet. So in as much as I was wearing a BA hat, but I was also doing a mini sales role because I was trying to sell them on a vision of something that is being created, but it's not there yet. So you can imagine what that looks like. You have to be painting vivid pictures for people to understand what are these guys trying to build? Because you're trying to hook a client, but you're also trying to explain what the roadmap is all about. And I was actually tasked to do all of those presentations. So I got exposed to how to sell. Because I think that sometimes as BA, we have to be good salesmen. I have worked with lots of stakeholders. Maybe you have Tando as well that are skeptical about a change. Now that I work in transformation, sometimes you meet some individuals that they just don't buy into the business case. So your job as a BA is for you to explain why something's being done and then envisage benefits to the end user. Because the easy conversation is what's in it for you as a stakeholder. Because if you have stakeholders that are pushing back, then as a BA, your chances of success will be very, very minimal because you are dealing with skeptical end users or skeptical stakeholders. So I think that experience also helped me to learn how to sell a project, a change for people to actually move on their journey with you, which for me is what really separates a good and a great BA. The good BAs will go in, they will list business requirements, but the great ones, they will sell the value proposition to the business area that's being impacted. They will try to connect the projects to the strategy of the company. Because once you know how to connect those two dots, I can tell you, then you have said you're a great BA, because learning how to read strategy is not just words. It's you have to internalize it yourself so that you can explain it to people in your own words. So as a BA, you need to be able to connect those dots. The project that we're working on right now, this is how it fits into the bigger scheme of things. These are the strategic objectives that we're trying to achieve by implementing this project. So for me, networking, it actually gave me an opportunity to get exposed to this type of conversations where ordinarily, just as a normal BA, I don't think I'll be able to have done that. So that's one thing. The second thing that I wanted to talk about was getting certified, Tando. I think getting certified has actually been tremendous for my career, especially moving from South Africa to Canada. Because if you get certified, it's on your CV. Nobody can take that away from you. And that's your entry into the door. Because I can tell you right now, a lot of recruiters, when they type in keywords, sometimes on LinkedIn, guess what they're actually typing in? Are you a CVAP if they're looking for senior BAs? So that alone gives you instant credibility. It doesn't mean that it gets you the job. It just gets you the phone call. Now it's up to you for you to land the job. It's actually quite a funny story because when I was moving from South Africa to Canada, I actually messaged one of the recruiters of a consulting company here. And I say, hey, I'm moving to Canada within 6 months. Here's my CV and I'm interested in talking to you. And guess what? That was the first job that I landed when I came to Canada. I did not really struggle to get a job because I think, I kid you not, I sent a message on LinkedIn. It was just like a message. Hey, I see you're a recruiter for this company. I'm moving to this city. I want to meet you guys. I came to Canada, sit across them, gave me an interview, and then they offered me the job on the spot. And I believe that my credentials that I had on my LinkedIn profile, my CV, getting certified, it was some sort of a validation for them to say, you know what, this guy probably knows what he's talking about. So that's the second thing. The third thing that I think has made some tremendous change, tremendous impact in my career is having a mentor. So the mentorship program. So both as a mentor or as a mentee. Myself as a mentor, I like helping people, especially coming from Africa. I get a lot of phone calls, people just needing help. How do I get into the industry? So this is where I sit across somebody and they say, you know what, this is what the job is all about. If you're not a people person, it's not for you. If you're not great at communication, I know you can develop communication skills, but some of this stuff, it comes natural. But you have to love talking to people. I don't know if this resonates with you. When I was leading a team, I would get some of the BAs coming to me and say, hey, Garnet, there's too many meetings. I can't stand the meetings. I always tell them, that is the job. Your job is meetings. If you don't like doing meetings, this is not the job for you.
It's not the job.
Because
even meetings where you don't speak is still part of the job, because anything could fly in and you have to be there ready to either pick it up or challenge it or be like, nope, that's not what we're doing or whatever. But yeah, 100%.
So that is the job. Because imagine you're a BA, you've got stakeholders. Let's say you come with your resume and these are my subject matter experts that I need to engage in. How are you going to engage with those people? Through meetings. Because a meeting can be, I'm sitting next to you and I'm shadowing you, I'm seeing what you're doing. Or I'm having a workshop where I'm trying to ascertain what are the challenges that we're trying to address, or what opportunities that we're trying to explore. So that is the job. You have to find time in between those engagements with your stakeholders where you're not documenting whatever results that you came out of those workshops or those engagements. And then that's how you deliver as a BA. But going through this mentorship program, I think I kind of learned more from my mentees than I learned from my mentors. And I'll explain why. Because when you're mentoring someone,
that is interesting.
In as much as it's fulfilling for me to say I'm giving back to the community, because I don't really charge people to be their mentors. I don't do that. I know there are some people that will say, you want to have a mentorship sessions with me, I'm going to charge you this much. I don't do that. I think I have mentored more than 30 people in my life. Some of them just find me on LinkedIn, they send me a message. Hey, dude, can I come and talk to you? Yes, come, let's have coffee. And I still keep in touch with some of those people because I'm very passionate about building up my people. Because coming into this industry as a BA, especially a person of color, it can be very challenging because for the most part, speaking your first language, you're speaking your second language. So that's one knock on your confidence. The second thing is just knowing where to go. Because sometimes you don't even have some heroes within your community that have been BAs, so you don't know who you can aspire to. So I feel like I can fill that void just by giving different perspectives because I've got experience. So the reason why I bring up this story is because I remember I was mentoring this gal. She actually just reached out to me on LinkedIn back in South Africa. She had never met me in my life. She just sent me a message like, dude, I need help. And she thought I was going to say no. I said, no, come, let's have coffee. And she was telling me that she's stuck in her career. She doesn't know what to do with her career. So we went through her CV, and then I was asking her some probing questions. What are you passionate about? What are you trying to do? And I thought that she was a great BA. So I kind of inspired her, pointed in the right direction, because I felt that she was missing certain skill sets and competencies that we need to thrive. And funny enough, a couple years later, she sends me a message. She's like, gee, I never forget the conversation that we used to have. In as much as you've left the country, but this is my new role now. I wanted to reach out to you to tell you thank you for what you did for me. It's those moments that they hit you different because you're saying, at least I'm doing something. I'm giving back because I've also had mentors in my life. And that for me is a story that I always like to tell because I try to tell BAs, especially if you're starting out, find a mentor, find somebody who can help you with your career. Because this job, you don't know it all. That goes without saying. No. Sometimes you're lucky because of your experience. You get exposed to different industries, to different people through networking. But if you have a mentor, at least you've got an established relationship where on a regular basis, you're meeting with your mentor, you're talking about some of the challenges that you're facing, and they will point in the right direction. And if you're lucky, you get a mentor who can also teach you some things, then that's great. But being a good mentor doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have the skill set for you to develop that individual. Sometimes you can just put them in touch with the right people and be able to help them. But for me, the mentorship relationship that I've had with lots of people from different backgrounds is very fulfilling because I like talking to people. I like helping people. And I feel like I learn a lot from those situations because sometimes you can get personal where somebody just telling you their story about what inspires them to be BAs, because that's one of the questions that I ask them. Why do you want to be a BA? What is the story behind it? And some people just don't know what the work is all about. And now I try to explain to them, this is what the job is. Do you feel like you are ready for it? Do you feel like this is you? And I've had some conversations where I've been talking people out of the profession where I tell them, dude, I don't think this is for you, man. Find another career. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's, as long as you can explain the reasoning behind it. Because I feel like good BAs, yes, they might have the basics, right? Like you can deliver on the project. But then if you want to become a great BA, senior BA, you need to have something innate in you where, like I said, do you understand the culture? Do you understand the domain? Do you have the awareness, the presence in the room where you're establishing trust with your stakeholders? Because trust is a very important thing as a BA. Can people pick up the phone and just call you and say, Tando, I've got a problem and I just want to run something by you? Once you get to that point in your career, then you know you're great. Where you're getting these unsolicited phone calls from your stakeholders that just asking you questions because they value your opinion. Then you know you're making a difference in your company.
My goodness, you've touched on a lot there, Garnet, that I want to go to. The one thing I definitely want to touch on actually is that you mentioned briefly, but you did mention that you moved from South Africa to Canada. Yeah. You reached out to a recruiter and say, "Hey, I'm on my way. Find me a job," and you got a job. But what?
It didn't work just quite like that, but it was close enough. So you know what? I'm interested.
Yeah, close enough. Close enough. But it worked out well for you. Let's say, right at the end of the day, the transition was powerful. What was that like then, becoming a business analyst? Because you know your stuff. You got the experience, but it's in South Africa, right? What's it like then coming into a new country, but still sticking to business analysis? And finding yourself not just in a new organization, but new culture, new country, new language, everything's new, and you're having to not just navigate, a new project, but almost everything in your life is now brand new. How did you find that?
It's a very good question, because when I joined this consulting company, then they put me on a client. So next day, so I come in, day one, give me my laptop. Hey, G, use your laptop, and we've got a client for you, because we hired you for this client. So I moved to this client. It was actually in the public sector. And guess what? That was my first time working in public sector. I have been in private sector all this time. I'd worked in banking, and then now I'm moving into new space. I didn't have any experience, but I found that to be a challenge that I want to embrace. I'm excited to do this. So I think I touched on the certification. The certification for me, when I did my CBAP in 2012, it wasn't just about validation. It was about the journey as well. Because a lot of things that you learn when you are preparing for your CBAP, they are very practical in terms of how you can apply it when you're doing the job. So for me, when I moved from South Africa to Canada, I was nervous to begin with. Like to your point, it's a new country. You don't know what you're expecting. But the one thing that I was confident of was that I know how to prepare, I know how to talk to people, and I know how to learn a new culture. So one of the funny things that I said when I was talking to one of my boys at this government client was that we actually went out to buy drinks. And I'm used to, if I want to buy you a drink, Tando, I can just pay for it. And then I come here and then people are pulling out their wallets. I'm like, hey guys, I'm buying for everyone, just for coffee. And they're like, no, we don't do that here. You pay for your own coffee. I'm like, okay, so I have to learn that now. So now I stopped offering people to buy them coffee. But then somebody said, and then I asked them, why is it like that? And that's when I realized that the sense of community, it means different things to different people depending on the context. So it's one of those small little things that you start picking up about the culture of the organization and the environment that you're dealing with. So working in that environment and me knowing that I know my stuff, I have prepared well for this opportunity. I want to thrive. But I knew that I did not know it all. So I spent time trying to learn the environment, because learning the culture for me is very important as a BA, because you need to know how to approach people, because there are certain things that are quite nuanced in terms of how people prefer to be engaged. Because the one thing that I've realized is that sometimes when you're dealing with stakeholders, there are some people that are not comfortable speaking in public or speaking within a broader group. So how do you deal with those kind of people? You talk to them on an individual basis. So I brought that with me. And the transition wasn't as challenging as I probably thought it would have, because I felt like I knew what I was talking about for the most part, and made the preparation that I had done as part of my transition to Canada. I was well prepared for this opportunity, so I wasn't going to let it go. And one of the things that I then figured out very, very quickly when I started working on this client is that business analysis, Tando. Whether you're doing it in South Africa, you're doing it in Zimbabwe, you're doing it in Canada, it's all the same thing. The stakeholders, they behave the same. Once I realized that, then I knew I was going to fly. Because at the end of the day, as long as you're well prepared, and people see that this guy has taken enough time to prepare and he's got the right question that we're asking and he understands why something is being done, that's how you gain your credibility. And for me, the transition was seamless in that regard.
Yeah. Nailed it on the head. Business analysis is business analysis regardless of the environment or the country and all the rest of it. I love that, man. I love that. So thinking, you touched on mentorship, right? So let's just do a quick role play.
Yes.
I'm a mentee. I'm coming to you, Garnet, and I've got 5 years experience as a business analyst. I would say that I think I'm good, but if I am being honest, I'm definitely not at that great, exceptional level. So, got that self-awareness there to say I've got gaps in my skill set, but also just in my approach and all the rest of it. What tips do you have for me? What kind of things are you telling me to do, consider, think about to really take me from kind of being a really good business analyst, but becoming that business analyst that the stakeholders are going to be like, we want Tana. Yeah. Let's call Tana to solve the problem.
I love the question, man. So I don't know how familiar you are with the IIBA framework and some of their assets that I have on the website. There is this assessment that any BA can actually take. And the good thing about completing that assessment, I think it only takes you about 30 minutes. And it's about your instincts in terms of how do you respond to a situation. So they give you like a couple of scenarios and they ask you, how would you handle this? And based on your responses, then they tell you these are where your strengths are. This is how you actually operate. I actually took that test, I think, about a couple of weeks ago again, because I usually like to do that on a regular basis just to see if I still have some blind spots, because they keep on improving it. And if I ask you to take that and then you bring your results, we sit across each other. I'm not going to rely on that piece of paper. I've got some other questions that I'm going to ask you. What do you think your strengths are and where do you think you need to grow? What do you think are your weaknesses? And through that, we'll be able to identify some competencies that, for me, like I said, separates the good and the great BAs. Understanding the company strategy, that for me is the hallmark of greatness. Because once you get the strategy of the company, you understand the business goals, you understand the execution part of that strategy. The rest it becomes easy for you to understand, why is this business case approved as compared to the other one? Why are we prioritizing this over the other thing? Do you know why that is important for you to understand? You're going to be asked the same question by certain stakeholders that are skeptical about why you even talk to them about something.
Right.
So as an individual, there are soft skills in my mind that are probably more important than your ability to document a requirement. Don't get me wrong, being great at documentation is awesome, but you can't document what you don't know. So you have to elicit the requirements first. And how do you do that? It's about the conversation that you're having with the different stakeholders. And if you do not know how to explain why something is being done, this is where, by and large, the pushback comes from. So what I really realized is that if you know how to connect the dots, I've got another story that I actually want to tell you. I was sitting with one of my guys that I used to lead, and we were talking just in general. Then I asked him, are you able to connect the dots for me? I'm giving you this project. Do you understand why we're doing this? And he was struggling a little bit. And then I took the pen, and then we had a whiteboard. And then I started explaining to him who owns the company. Why do they own the company? The shareholder, trying to connect the shareholder to the board of the company. What does the board do? They set business targets. Once the business targets are set, now the CEO of the company, they have to execute on that because they're incentivized to meet those business goals. And trying to draw the continuum line up to why this project was actually prioritized. Because the project that I assigned to him was that we're creating a new capability in the company that did not exist. They wanted to change the distribution strategy. But then, obviously, we didn't have that capability within the company. But you need to understand why that capability is being built, because it's aligned to a certain business goal. So once you can explain that to a stakeholder in terms that they can understand that this thing, we're building it because we want to sell it. Maybe it's a new product, it's a new service. Because if you think about innovation, there's product innovation, there's process innovation, and those two things are kind of separate. Because if you look at the process innovation, you're actually doing things in a different way, but it's a service that you're providing. Product is something that people can actually touch, whether you use a tangible or intangible product, but it is a product and output. But those things are created for certain reasons. So if you're able then to connect those dots. So this guy now internalized the conversation, and guess what he did? He wrote an article about it. Those are one of my proudest moments, actually, because I now go on BA Times. He didn't tell me about it. So once it gets published, this guy sends me a link. It says, hey, gee, do you remember that conversation? Look at this article. And then I read the article like a proud uncle. Oh, man, this is great. But it was it was a good article because he was now explaining why certain projects get prioritized over the others and why it's important for BAs to understand prioritization. Why it's important for you to understand prioritization. Because whether you're working in agile space or you're working in a waterfall, because let's say you're working in agile space and then you're just working on this continuous improvement enhancements or those kind of things, you might have like 50 items on the backlog. And if you are facilitating a conversation with the stakeholders that are responsible for prioritization, you should be able to explain business value. You need to be able to explain complexity. You need to be able to explain effort, story sizing if you're using Scrum or any other agile methodology. And you mastering that will help them to prioritize things. So when I sit across you, Tando, then you're asking me the question, you'll be able to pick up very, very quickly where some of your blind spots might be. But completing that assessment, I think, is a good starting point for the most part. I'm not sure if it's free or you need to pay for it. I want to say maybe it's free.
Do you know the name of it?
It's a competence assessment. It is called that, Business Analysis Competence Assessment. And essentially, once you complete it, they tell you this is where you're at, and this is some of the areas that you need to focus on. And they give you a report, actually, with a breakdown of how you responded to certain questions and some of the things that you might want to look out for. And I kid you not, it was very, very insightful for me because it touches on a myriad of factors from strategy, understanding data, understanding the soft skills or the hard skills of the BA, how do you approach a situation? And through that, then they tell you, this is what we think you need to work on. So obviously, it's not an exact science. Like, it won't be straight to the T. But for me, if I'm your mentor, I would ask you to complete that first. We'll review it together. I'll ask you what you agree or disagree with what this paper is saying. And then obviously, in your own words, I would ask you what you think your strengths are, your weaknesses, and where do you want to go? What are your aspirations? I think at some point, if we have time, I'd like us to talk about the career after business analysis. Are you a career BA or are you looking to branch out into something else? Because I think there's so many opportunities for BAs. Business analysis is actually a good foundation for you to become like a business architect or to get into product management or to branch into portfolio management or business transformation, as it were. So there's a lot of opportunities that a great BA can actually just branch into, even leadership as a BA. Managing a team of BAs is very different to just being a BA. And I have done both. I can tell you there's a difference there.
Yeah, well, might as well just carry on that path then. So let's just, because we've started at the good to great, so let's touch on the great BAs now then, from that career perspective. Are you saying that it is a good foundation to then step into these other roles, and what options do they have? You touched on architecture, project management, leadership, and what does that look like?
So project management for me, I'm sorry, project managers, if you're watching this, I know you probably won't like it, but I don't see it as a step up from business analysis, if I'm being honest.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that, man. I don't think it is either.
It's a complementary role, right? Like, we work together with PMs. Yeah. And if you look at the pay scales here in Canada, especially, I know BAs that are earning more than project managers, and they are on the same project because business analysis is so important. But let's not digress on that. So if you look at a BA and you're solid BA, so there are some people that are very comfortable being a business analyst for life, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like once you have the foundation and you understand business analysis well, and you want to branch out to something else, for me, the natural step up will be business architecture, because you're now looking at business analysis at a much more elevated level, where you're looking at the capabilities of the company. Where are we falling short? What are the blind spots? And once you can understand how to evaluate the capability and understanding how do you identify gaps in what the company is trying to achieve. Actually, let's paint a picture here. Let's say you are the VP of marketing of your company, and your competitors are offering this service that your company doesn't because of what? You don't know. Who do you talk to? You talk to an architect. So I'll be sitting across you. So let's say you were the VP of whatever, or you're the CEO. You went on a symposium, and some other CEOs are bragging, they're saying, we sell our service via mobile app because we've got a mobile app. That's great. And then you come to me, I'm an architect, and you say, hey, dude, how come you don't do this? It should be the business architect to highlight the gaps of what the company can do. Those are the business capabilities, and understanding what it means for you to be able to offer that service, because it's more than just technology. So if you look at these three different perspectives of a capability, there is the people side, the process side, and the technology side. Mm-hmm. And those three elements actually form a capability. Is the company capable of offering this either to their clients or internal or external client, be that as it may, doesn't matter really. But for me, when you're having conversations with an architect, you're now understanding the capabilities of a company. Where are we falling short? Where do we need to do? You're also benchmarking the company against competition. So now you have to be engaged with your marketing team. They have to tell you, where are we falling short? What differentiates the company from our competitors? What is the strategic advantage that we have? Because through that, you need to understand what the company needs to do very well or what the company needs to do just okay. Because if you're not competing on price, for example, you're competing on a service, just logic tells you that your service fundamentals have to be great, better than the competition. Because now people talk, right? I don't know if you do this as much as I do. If I want to, let's say I want to go, I want to change banks, I want to buy a car. What is the first thing that you do, Tando? Let's say you want to do something that you haven't done before.
Oh my goodness, I got knee deep, headstrong in
exactly right.
I can't help it.
Google reviews.
And I find myself
you might even do that.
Google, YouTube, blogs, everything. TikTok, I'm everywhere.
So you can imagine that. And sometimes when I talk to some of these senior leaders and then say, have you ever taken time to go on the Google reviews and see how much the service is being enjoyed by the people or not being enjoyed? Through that, if you're, let's say, a business architect, you'll be able to see, okay, we're getting these customer complaints or we're getting these nice reviews. It's because we're doing well on these capabilities or not. So that is the elevated level of understanding the business that I'm talking about. You have the business canvas on a piece of paper where you're really understanding what are the cost drivers of the company. So if one of your goals is to reduce costs, you as a business architect, you're then advising what will be the roadmap? How do we get there? So that's one thing that the foundation of business analysis helps you to become a very competent architect. That for me is a natural progression.
Got you. Yeah, that sounds like a very, very good progression actually. So thank you for that. Let's take it all the way back now to the new and upcoming business analysts. Those maybe got let's say under 2 years. So either they want to be or they've just started. Right. What would you say that they should focus on developing and growing to eventually take them towards the path of becoming the great business analysts that they can be? Yeah.
So as easy as this might sound, but getting certified, it might sound like I'm just a marketing piece for the IIBA. I'm not, believe me. But the thing is, I think the IIBA has become the de facto institution that actually validates business analysis, your skills, and what you can and what you cannot do. So for me, the value of going through the IIBA certifications is not really the certificate at the end of the day. It's a journey that takes you to get there. Because of the learning material that are there. There is 6 knowledge areas that I think every BA, regardless of your level, whether you're junior BA, mid-level, entry-level, senior BA, there's 6 knowledge areas that are in the BA book that I think you need to appreciate depending on your level. Obviously, if you're senior BA, then you need to have full appreciation of what solution evaluation is, what business analysis, planning, and monitoring is, because now you occupy different roles within the BA space. So for me, getting certified, I could not recommend that enough. It's one of the key things that through the certification, you'll be able to hone in your skills that you would need for you to go to that next level. Through certification, like I said, it opens up doors, man. On LinkedIn, keyword searches, they search by certification. Who has got this credential? If you have it, they can even headhunt you and say, hey, dude, are you interested in this role? I got one of my roles here in Canada via LinkedIn. A guy just contacted me. I was very happy at the company that I was at. And then they just said, hey, dude, I know you might not be in the market, but there is a job that I think it might be of interest to you. And that alone will open up doors, regardless of your level, because there are companies that might be looking for junior BAs. But then how will they do that? Yes, they might post a job on the job boards, but they might just look for the people with a certain credential. And once you do that, then you put your foot in the door. So that's one. So through that, you'll be able to identify the skill set that you need. But one of the things that I always recommend people is that you need to learn how to communicate. Communication, I cannot emphasize that enough. I am still learning how to communicate, Tando, because that for me is what really sets people apart. How relatable are you? Are you approachable? You can never achieve greatness if people are scared to talk to you. It is that simple. So for me, communication is really the foundation piece for a successful BA. If you're great at a job, you end up, let's say, speaking at symposiums because you know how to communicate. I remember when I was giving this talk for the IIBA here in Canada, and as much as I might sound different, but then I knew that I had the literature to back me up. And if you're telling stories in a way that people can understand when you're trying to articulate, it becomes a very easy conversation. And even at the office, I think you and I were spoken about this a little bit, that sometimes, for the most part, we are performing this job as BAs in your second language. For me, English is my second language. It's not my first language. But imagine you're now in Canada where you are supposed to run a workshop of people that are speaking their first language. You're speaking your second language. So it's not a very easy proposition for a lot of people. So some people, they just lose the confidence in as much as they know what to do. But then, if you're a nervous wreck, then sometimes you just underperform. So it's just building like confidence. But then how do you build confidence? Is through communication. I cannot emphasize that enough. Hone in your communication skills. Some of it is learned, some of it is natural. But I think that if you have a skill that you want to grow, if you want to learn, you can definitely do that. Even speaking in public, there's Toastmasters. I have been part of the Toastmasters. That has also helped me tremendously in terms of how do you speak off the cuff sometimes, because I remember you're running a workshop and then you just get thrown a curveball where somebody's asking a question that you're not prepared for. Be prepared to say, I don't know, I will get back to you. I know some BAs that don't want to do that, so they'll start faking it. They will pick it up if you're faking. I will be honest. If I get asked a question, Tando, that I don't understand, I will say, I don't know, but I'll get back to you. I will know that I will get back to that individual, but it's all about the presence that I spoke about. So if you have presence and the communication skills are very solid, I'm telling you, everything else becomes quite, not easy per se, but it becomes much more easier for you to elevate your career as a BA.
Love that. Love that. Love that. Garnet, it has been such an mind-opening and eye-opening conversation with you today. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us all your words of wisdom. A couple of questions for me as we come to an end. The first one is, and I can probably guess where, but the first one is, where is the best place for people to connect with you and maybe even become a mentee of yours?
Oh yeah, they can get in touch with me on LinkedIn, Garnet Masenda. You can search me on LinkedIn, and I'm very much happy to connect with people, and we can share some ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. I will put your LinkedIn profile in the show notes.
Sounds good.
In closing then, Garnet, and just kind of thinking about this, this idea of kind of going from good, decent business analysts to kind of really great business analysts. You have touched on kind of the skills that we need, the approach that we need, but if you were to almost sum up one thing that really differentiates a top quality business analyst from, I guess, a good or average business analyst, what would you say that one thing be?
So I know that I touched on this, but I use the word be a salesman, but I don't want to use that word. I want to say you need to be able to explain why something is being done. Whether you were solving a problem or we're exploring an opportunity, you need to be able to understand the nuance between those two and the approach that you would take, whether you're solving a problem or exploring an opportunity, because now you're going to be approaching it differently. Exploring a new opportunity, it's more exciting because people are excited because this is a new thing. But when you're solving a problem, you need to understand how it's impacting your stakeholders. You need to have empathy as a BA. And those are some of the soft skills that you'll pick up, and the culture will dictate what your approach would be. Whether you're working in a company that embraces innovation, that encourages people to fail, that's great. You need to understand that as a BA. So which means exploring new opportunities, that's great. That's easy. But when you're solving a problem where people are telling you, hey, this has been like a nightmare for me. I even hate coming to work because this process is not working. You as a BA, you need to be able to be empathetic when we're talking with the individuals because they are people at the end of the day. So the soft skills,
Absolutely.
I cannot emphasize that enough, Tando. In as much as I called it sales, you need to be able to sell an idea, but beneath that, there is the empathy side of business analysis that I think separate the good and the great BAs. Because once the stakeholders understand that Tando actually listens to us, he spends time to understand the problem that we're having, your experience will be very different. The next time they'll be calling your name because they know that you spend time to relate to them. So for me, that is what separates us. You might be able to understand why something is being done, understanding the strategy and execution and everything else. But if you lack empathy, because it's a people business at the end of the day. Yes, in as much as we're delivering change, but through delivering change, we need to communicate well. And empathy goes a long way. So those would be my parting words.
Love that, Garnet. Once again, thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure our listeners will do as well.
And it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me. Let's do it again.